Hi everyone, welcome to the show. Anne Boleyn. She's captivated the world for centuries. Second wife to Henry VIII, the young woman who stole his heart, precipitated the break with Rome, only to be betrayed and beheaded. The first English queen to be publicly executed. But how exactly did a courtier's daughter rise to such dizzying heights? In this episode, we are going to go back to the beginning. We're going to talk about Anne's birth, her formative years at Europe's competing centres of power, her time at the glittering French courts where she mastered the art of politics and diplomacy and culture and maybe love as well. How these early experiences shaped the ambitious, intelligent woman who'd one day change the course of English history. Was she the great harlot, the Protestant schemer, or was just an innocent, love-struck woman? To help us uncover the real story behind Anne's rise and fall, we are joined by the one and only Estelle Paranque, Associate Professor of History at Northeastern University of London and author of Thorns, Lust and Glory, The Betrayal of Anne Boleyn. Estelle, good to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Dan.
So, Anne Boleyn can be quite obscure, her beginnings. Do we know when and where she was born?
Oh, that's such a terrific question. So many people disagree, like 1501, 1507. But for me, it's 1501.
Okay.
It's 1501 because it makes sense for her time in France. When we know she's in France, so she's about 14, 15. And that would make sense for her to be a lady in waiting at that age. If she was 7 or 8...
Too young.
I do think so. I do not see Thomas Boleyn sending his 7, 8-year-old to France or even to Mechelen before. So 1501 for me.
The idea of my 8-year-old daughter by herself in France is just astonishing. But anyway, I digress. Poor little Ola.
No, but 14, 15, it's already you're considered more of an adult or a young adult, but it is totally possible, right? 7 or 8, I don't see it. I'm not saying it never happened, but I just think that it's highly unlikely.
And so we're going on 1501.
Yeah.
Born in, people say Hever Castle in Kent, or it could be, okay.
No, Norfolk.
Norfolk, right.
Yeah.
And that's important because she is part of that super dynasty of the Tudor period, which is the Norfolks.
Exactly. And also, obviously, from her mother's side, Elizabeth Boleyn is the Norfolk, right? But from her father's side, Thomas Boleyn, it's all these Irish lords as well.
Okay.
So a big legacy. She's not, everyone wants to believe that Anne Boleyn is a kind of a nobody. Obviously, she's not Catherine of Aragon. She's not royal blood. But she's still someone with a big lineage herself. And I think we tend to forget that about her. Right,
so she's got posh ancestors on her dad's side, but the Howard family of the Dukes of Norfolk on her mum's side,
absolutely,
who are they're the power behind the throne right through this period.
Yeah.
What about her? So what do we know about her childhood? So before she goes on her travels, how would a young girl like that have been raised in this period?
Well, that's a very interesting question because actually at Hever Castle, we know that she went when she was young there and she spent her childhood there.
And people can still go visit that in Kent today.
And they can visit it.
Yeah.
And they were at some point they had the Boleyn Apartments and it was an amazing exhibition by Kit McCaffrey and Dr. Winna Mason and Dr. Alison Palmer. And they did this amazing thing where they tried to make you feel like what it would have been like for Anne Boleyn to play with her brother and her sister, George and Mary. And they had reproduced toys, wooden toys and all these type of things and playing in the gardens because the Hever Castle, obviously there's the castle, but that's the garden, so it's quite amazing as well. So there's all of this and you can really picture Anne Boleyn playing there with, wooden toys and all this type of stuff and where she would have learned a lot of skills.
And her uncle was the Duke of Norfolk, as we discussed. She's very well connected. Did she get an education there?
She did. Well, they started the education there, but actually, it's her father at some point was like, you need to get a proper education. There's also this big discussion, was Anne Boleyn the eldest daughter? Again, not a very controversial question, but a lot of historians will tell you, no, Mary Boleyn was the eldest. But because we don't know, for me, it's very hard to believe that Thomas Boleyn would have promoted Anne's education over his eldest daughter, Mary.
Okay.
So for me, I believe that Anna was actually the eldest. It makes no sense to give her that. And it's because he would have favored her and he would have loved her more. But again, I think, first off, it's a bit harsh. I mean, if you have more than one kid, you should know that it's very hard to choose one.
Very difficult.
So, like, I don't see how you would prefer, this daughter over the other one. It makes no sense to me.
So we think she's the oldest, so
I think so,
a lot of attention being paid to education.
Yes.
And why is that? Because he was very progressive, or just because noble women ought to know what's going on, be able to speak languages, read?
I think there's a bit of this. I think he wanted to advance the Boleyn family, the name, his name, right? Yes. So obviously he married Elizabeth Boleyn in Norfolk. So he really wanted to also push himself into that, to rise. Sure. But when you really think about it as well, I mean, that's my opinion. And I'm going to say something that's going to sound a bit also controversial. I'm sorry, Dan. It's just a controversial episode.
That's why we got you on.
But I think that Thomas Boleyn also wanted Anne Boleyn to have an education, but because it could serve him. Because when you think about it, he's going to send her, he's going to use his own network with Cardinal Wolsey, his patron, his own network, to offer his daughter to Margaret of Austria in Mechelen, right? And we're here in 1513. So Anne Boleyn would have been very young to be sent there. But why does he do this? He does it because obviously he wants Anne Boleyn to learn French, a very important language, Dan.
Of course. Bien sûr.
But also he does this because for him, it's a way to promote her, but to have his ears and eyes in another country and to forge himself his personal relation. Well, is it really personal? It's always a bit political, isn't it? Political relationship with Margaret of Austria. And when everything's going to change, when the alliance between England and Spain is going to be more complicated, he's going to switch, and it's where he's going to send or ask to send Anne to France. So we see a father that obviously I think he believed in Anne's abilities. But we also have a father who was extremely ambitious, not in a bad way. I don't think he was using Anne as a pawn only, but with the aim of advancing the whole family.
Interesting. Yeah. So his choices about education, where he'd send his children, are also shadowing England's foreign policy at the time and imperial and relationships. Okay, so talk about Mechelen, Anne of Austria. Who is she? Why does she want some English kid to be, a patron of?
That is a very interesting question because actually it doesn't make lots of sense that she would agree for Thomas Boleyn to send his daughter. But that's because Thomas Boleyn was sent as a special envoy. And I think she liked him. And when he said, would you mind I would like my daughter to learn from you. And Margaret of Austria is obviously from this big Habsburg family. She's the aunt of Charles V. She's the governor of the Spanish Netherlands. A very, very strong woman. And why am I insisting on this? Because I want people to understand that Anne Boleyn met a very strong and powerful woman at only 12 or 13 years old.
And she's wielding power in her own right, as you say.
Absolutely. She's
aunt
really
of Charles V
of Spain.
One of the most powerful men in European history.
Yeah, I mean, if you say that to a French person, it's very hard, but yes.
It's difficult for you to hear. I'm sorry, I'm not going to mention King Francis and his embarrassment at the hands of Charles V. I'm not even going to mention it. I'm not going to mention it, so I haven't even mentioned it. But, so she's running what is now Holland and bits of Belgium.
Yes.
For this empire.
For this empire.
Right.
And she's a very powerful woman. So when Thomas, I think she was amused by the idea of and I think she liked the fact that he was bold to ask. So she said yes. So he sent Anne there. And Anne spent time with her. Now, what do we know actually about her time there? We don't know that much, but we have a surviving letter of Anne Boleyn during that time that she wrote in Mechelen to her father.
And Mechelen is where, sorry?
It's now Belgium.
Now Belgium. Okay, fine. Yeah.
So she wrote to her father, and she's saying how much she's learned French and how much she's learned, the court rules of, and that's very interesting because obviously here we see what Thomas Boleyn wanted and was trying to do. He was trying to make, from a very young age, Anne Boleyn politically astute, politically aware of how power worked. And that's quite incredible. But obviously, because of what's happening in Europe, things are going to become very complicated. Margaret of Austria is going to get very annoyed with English because someone is looking for a wife, Louis XII of France. Because Anne of Brittany died, the Queen of France died. And Henry VIII thinks, if I give my sister Mary Tudor. But the Spanish are furious. He had promised Mary Tudor to one of them.
Right.
And he's like, are you going to break that treaty? Are you going to break that agreement? And we know Henry VIII, of course he will break anything he wants to break. He's a breaker.
So there are sort of two big power blocks in Western Europe. Like there's the French, and then there's the Empire.
Absolutely.
Okay, so Anne Boleyn's been sent to the imperial side at the moment.
Absolutely.
But now Henry's turned it all on its head.
Well, Henry VIII, like for him, Anne Boleyn right now means nothing.
Oh, sure, of course, yeah.
But he's like looking at the. I mean, when I say Henry VIII, we know it's also Cardinal Wolsey who's really behind, the power here, especially at that time. So here they're shifting kind of an alliance. They see an alliance possible with France. It would put an end to the war. It would, there are the Italian wars. It's been bloody. And also it gives them an edge. It gives them it gives a more importance to England on the European political scene. And Thomas Boleyn is like, ooh, okay, Mary Tudor is going to be sent. So Mary Tudor, not, the sister of Henry VIII.
Sister.
Is going to be sent to France. And Thomas Boleyn said, I want Anne to go with Mary Tudor. But Anne is with Margaret of Austria, who's already quite annoyed with all of this. So he wrote to Margaret of Austria. Margaret of Austria obviously had to agree. I mean, she can't, keep Anne Boleyn. But she's also very annoyed.
So she likes Anne Boleyn. She
does.
Okay,
she said that she thought she was very intelligent. We have also a letter of her saying to Thomas that Anne Boleyn is very intelligent. She loves spending time with her. She learns quickly. It's something that actually Anne Boleyn has in common with Elizabeth I. When you really look at their education, they learn so fast.
They're smart.
Very, very smart. And so Margaret of Austria is going to agree, but Anne Boleyn can't get in time back to England to go to France. So here, then it gets very interesting here. Thomas Boleyn managed to secure the place of Anne Boleyn in Mary Tudor's, court, when she's sent to France, by sending Mary Boleyn, the second daughter.
Oh, a substitute.
Exactly, a substitute, exactly. And what I love is that in the manuscripts we have Mademoiselle Boleyn, right? And so because they don't know if it's Anne or Mary who's going to go first and who's going to arrive there. And at first it's Mary. Anne is going to arrive after the coronation, actually, of Mary. So, but she arrives there, and then something else happened. Like fate always strikes when you don't expect it to strike. Louis XII is going to die, and Mary Tudor is a widow. And she has to go back, like all this saga, she's going to marry in secret Charles Brandon, and it's going to be...
Yes, so that's right. So she's briefly the Queen of France.
Briefly the Queen of France.
Henry VIII sent his mate out to go and get her, and then they get married. Unbelievable, Charles Brandon.
Unbelievable.
So sneaky.
I think that's a good term. I would have said something else, but that's a good term, Dan. And then they go back to England. And here something happens. Mary Boleyn comes back to England with Mary. But here we have a little Boleyn who stayed. And what we don't know, we don't have it in the archives. I haven't found it. If someone else found it, bless you. I want you to find it. There are more stuff to find. But here she doesn't come back. She stayed. So someone has asked for her to be a lady-in-waiting of the new queen, Claude of France, the wife of Francis I. And they accepted. They accepted to have this English woman. And I think, again, it's Thomas Boleyn. Why? Because Thomas Boleyn has also been sent as a special envoy. And I think he's a very charming person. I think he's very likable. And I think everywhere he goes, he knows how to flatter people in power. He creates a very strong bond. And then he asks for special favors. And it worked.
Extraordinary. And Anne can play the part because she's super smart.
She's super smart. She's already learned French, so it's not a problem. And she's the same age, more or less, as Claude of France. So I think there's this bond as well with young, when I say young girls, young women together. And we know that they did get on because we have sources after that said that Anne Boleyn got on with Claude of France and René of France. Catherine de Medici tried to convince Elizabeth to have a special friendship because she said, your mother was a friend of Claude and René of France. René is the sister of Claude of France. And she said, so we should be friends too.
Okay. So that's fact. So we think of Anne Boleyn as just arriving at Henry VIII's court and being attractive and Henry turning Henry's head and making him fall in love with her. But she's had this really interesting, important, and unusual journey through
Absolutely.
European high politics.
Dan, do you know that actually Anne is more well-traveled than Henry VIII or even Catherine of Aragon? Isn't it crazy? Because we think of Anne, when you think of France, you think of Paris, right? Newsflash, France is not Paris. She went to the Mediterranean.
Really?
Yeah.
So as part of the Queen's entourage, travelling around.
Exactly. Yeah. So in October 1515, Francis I had been in battles in Italy and had his first victory in Marignano. And he comes back, and so Louise of Savoy, his amazing and wonderful mother, Francis I's mother, decided to take the court to the south to celebrate him and to welcome him back. So here you have Claude of France, Louise of Savoy, Marguerite of Angoulême, Francis I's sister, and their ladies-in-waiting, the court, that is going to go through like the Château de la Loire and go down Lyon, Toulon, Tarascon, and Orange, and obviously Marseille. Now, we never talk about this. It never appears anywhere in the books on Anne Boleyn. And I wonder why, because don't we understand like the impact? I want you to understand that each time these women stopped in a city, the tapestries, the pageants were about women. It was about celebrating Louise of Savoy and Claude of France. And Anne witnessed that. Witnessed women being powerful, influential, loved, praised. And she's, 50 years old and she's like, oh my God. And then she sees the Mediterranean for the first time, the only time of her life. What an opportunity.
Is there an opportunity here for the English cause in France? She's learning, she's developing, she's growing, okay. But is she able to represent English interests, or is she playing a role yet on the stage?
That is so interesting because she's a lady in waiting to Claude of France. So technically, no, she's not. She's not an ambassador. She's not. But we don't have the letters, but somehow Thomas Boleyn seems to know what's going on with Claude of France, to the point where Francis I himself. So, for example, there was one night where Claude of France was pregnant. She's always pregnant, but she was pregnant and she was really in lots of pain. And Thomas Boleyn knew about this. Who else would have told him? Who else would have spent time with Claude of France, being in lots of pain while pregnant? Anne. So we know there is a big correspondence between them two. There's another thing, I've been asked a lot about. Is like, do you think that, Anne could have been an interpreter, with the Field of Cloth of Gold or other kind of meetings with ambassadors? Yes, I do. And people are like, but Catherine of Aragon and Henry VIII, they did speak French. Yes, but can we see the difference between speaking French and being fluent?
Yes, I'm familiar with that difference.
It is a big difference. When you are completely absorbed in a country, you can understand when 5-6 people are speaking at the same time the language. When you just speak the language, even if Henry VIII was absolutely amazing with French, I'm sure he was, or Catherine of Aragon was absolutely amazing. Catherine of Aragon, such a powerhouse as well. But I'm sorry, I think Anne was needed. I think Anne played a role because I think she was able to understand everything that they were saying. I think you're not the same when you become bilingual. You're faster, you understand better, you understand the jokes. She becomes culturally French. She spent 7 years with them, with the French. Poor her, no, I'm kidding. It's great. you see?
And so... And it's good for Thomas Boleyn because if he's getting this brilliant intel from the heart of the French state, it boosts his standing in English
and his
circles.
Relationship.
Yeah, boosts
right.
His,
so he's like, so Francis really liked the fact that Thomas shows concerns and he knows, and they see them as friends. That's why when they call back Anne Boleyn to England, we know that there's going to be a war, as obviously starting between France and England. But Francis is like very hurt. He's like, why are you calling her back? She's been with us for 7 years. And it's when he knew like something was, obviously going wrong here. But I love the fact that we have Anne Boleyn this nobody was actually witnessing grandeur and, magnificent things from France. Because Paris court is, I have to say it, it's the best court.
I know, it's difficult for us to admit, but yeah, the English are always a bit of a pale shadow.
And I think so. I'm sorry, Dan.
And so let's talk, speaking of grandeur, you mentioned Field of the Cloth of Gold. Just remind us what happens there. Henry VIII meets King Francis. Whereabouts and why is it called Field of the Cloth of Gold?
So the Field of Cloth of Gold happens just outside of Calais because we know, unfortunately, Calais.
The mighty English Empire in France. Still, the little town of Calais. Okay.
Done killing me. But yeah, so it is a very important event because Francis I and Henry VIII are basically showing that they are very good and strong friends. Here it's about the alliance. It's about showcasing the alliance, that it's unshakable. And also it's very rare, right? We know that it is unheard of to have two kings meeting and having this magnificent time together. So there's going to be tournaments, celebrations, festivities, obviously beer and probably wine.
Bit of wrestling.
A bit of wrestling. Do you want to talk about this? It's not good for the English.
No, I think
he lost.
Henry VIII wrestles Francis and loses. Fine. Okay.
No, exactly.
Okay, let's keep. And there's wine fountains. And
it's magnificent. Yeah. It's such a very expensive time for both courts. Actually, it ruins them both.
And Anne is part of this.
Anne is there.
You're saying really
Thomas
a key part.
Boleyn and Elizabeth Boleyn are there, and Anne is there. She's on the French side.
Yeah, extraordinary.
She's with Claude. But it's the first time she's going to meet Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon. I would like it here just to remember, because people always think that it starts with a big rivalry between the two queens, Catherine and Anne. No, it starts with a big respect, a big allegiance from Anne. Let's not forget that the Boleyns were really respected Catherine of Aragon. At that time, 1520, 15, there's no problem, right, between Anne Boleyn and Catherine of Aragon at all. So it starts on something very good, very promising, and obviously it's going to go downhill. But here we have Anne that is going to witness as well these two kings. And I wonder sometimes, I don't know if you do that when you do work on your own research, but sometimes I wonder, do you think she was I can see their similarities because they are so similar in the type of men they were, very, warrior kings, Renaissance king, both very narcissist.
Both charismatic but narcissistic as well. Yeah.
Both of them, both Francis and Henry. And I wonder if she realized that, witnessed that. I guess we will never know because we can't interview her, but that's something I've always wondered when I was working on her.
The Field of the Cloth of Gold, the diplomacy, there's lots of fancy words, but not much lasting legacy because England and France will end up going to war.
Well, we always do, don't we?
Yeah, sure.
The French and English, we love each other and we love to hate each other.
Yep.
So we fall in and out of love constantly. And I think that's exactly what happened. But at first, they really tried. That actually Henry VIII and Francis I's relationship is so remarkable because there's lots of, of breakups, but they always come back together, don't they? It is interesting when you just look at, because there's going to be a fallout again, but then they're going to be friends again. A fallout again. So I don't know. It never lasts.
But after this, but when during one of their periods of falling out,
yes,
Anne is summoned back from France.
She has to leave France. Yeah.
Okay.
So
because England and France are about to go to war.
And Thomas Boleyn asked her to come back before, obviously, there's this fallout. So that's when Francis I was like, "Oh my God, what's going on? Why are you asking your daughter to come back?"
Interesting.
And so that was the first warning for the French. Something up is about to happen, right? And so Anne comes back, and we have this idea that Anne's come back and she still, Henry VIII's heart as soon as she comes back. That's not really true, is it? She comes back 1521. She's still very much a nobody, but they're trying to put her as a lady in waiting to Catherine of Aragon. So she's placed into Catherine of Aragon household, right?
Because she's now an accomplished.
She's done it with
woman.
Margaret of Austria, with Claude of France. She's so, I mean, she's the perfect lady in waiting, apart from the fact, like, what happens next?
Yeah. Until that point. Just to finish off thing in France, scurrilous misogynistic rumours about her sort of sexual adventures in France. Do we have any evidence for any of that? Nothing.
Never
Okay,
happened,
fine.
all right?
Okay, fine.
No. We forget something about Anne. We have this image. It comes from like her detractors way after. Anne is a very pious and religious woman. She is a very Catholic. In France, she also meets Margaret of Angoulême. Francis the First sister. And we also, Margaret of Angoulême, everyone is thinking, oh my God, obviously this big reformist. Yes, she loved reformed ideas, but especially in the late 1530s and 1540s. Anne is dead by then. In the 1520s, and late 1510s, Margaret, yes, she reads some books, but she's not a full reformed person.
She's not what we might a beginning of a Protestant. So
no, she's not.
She's not on that journey.
And
okay.
I think we have a big problem with that, Dan, and I'm going to have a go on your podcast. I'm sorry, but I think people don't just change their religion like, oh yes, today I'm going to be a Protestant. It takes such a long time for you to read books. It's not because you read a book that, oh my God, yes, I'm going to become a Protestant. It takes a long time for you to change your mind about something so important as religion. They all believed in God. It's not, it's part of their daily life. Anne Boleyn is extremely Catholic. Yeah. Her family is extremely Catholic. There's no other way. Now, is she interested in the conversation? Did she hear some stuff that were interesting? Probably. Anne loved reading. Margaret of Angoulême loved the idea of women being well educated. So I think Anne benefited from this. But I don't think she changed her mind about religion and then came back to the front and tried to change everyone else's mind. I don't think that happened at all.
Okay, so she's arrived at the English court. She's not burning with some secret Protestant zeal that she's picked up on the continent. So she's and she's now a lady in waiting to Queen Catherine of Aragon.
Yes.
How does that go?
Well, I mean, the evidence probably it went well. It went well until it didn't go well. Until and again, another thing that's going to be very controversial. But I want to debunk the myth that Anne Boleyn pursued Henry VIII. Anne Boleyn is not the home wrecker that everyone thinks she is. No, but we have to stop with this. She didn't care about Henry VIII. She wanted to marry Henry Percy. So the Earl of Northumberland, very important family. Obviously, they were not sure about, him marrying a Boleyn. It was a bit below their status. But that's beyond the point. There's also Cardinal Wolsey that stopped that marriage because Henry VIII was starting to be interested in Anne Boleyn.
Oh, I see. Okay. So you've got a Percy, it's one of the great families of England. They have got a burgeoning romance.
Yeah.
They're falling in love at court. And Henry VIII actually orders that to...
Well, there is kind of evidence that Cardinal Wolsey is trying to do everything he can to make sure that it stopped. Okay. Maybe he's the one who suggested that the Boleyns were not as high standards as the Percys, so maybe it should not happen. Whatever we know, what happened for sure is that marriage never happened, and then Anne Boleyn was kind of offered, well, would you like to be my mistress?
Okay.
And she's like, no.
Right, so and this was normal in this period that kings would take mistresses.
Yes, well, he had mistresses before,
right.
Beth Blount, who had children, Henry Fitzroy,
right. And they would be like Anne from sort of aristocratic backgrounds, gentry and noble families.
Well, it really depends, depending on the kings and depending on. But actually, I don't think Beth Blount was from a very nice background, and he gave her lots of lands and wealth. Actually, it's very interesting with Henry VIII. If you compare him to Francis I, who, he was shagging any woman he could. Well, Henry VIII, I think, is someone who's more. I hate the book with the guy, but he picks one. Yeah, yes, he picks one at a time, right? Yeah. So it's like you, and then but then I'll kill you, right? I don't know which one is best.
He's a romantic on one level, isn't he? He sort of falls in love.
It's what people say.
Okay.
But but I think that there might be a bit of truth in that. But he's still for me a massive monster. But that's
okay. Well, we can all agree on that. But yes, but it'd not like Francis. He's not just having sex with people and then just getting rid of them straight away. Okay.
Yeah. He's not. Or at least we don't have the evidence that he's doing that, right? Okay. We don't have that evidence. So he's going to pursue Anne Boleyn. He's very interested in her. I think it's the fact that she's well-traveled, she's well-educated, she's different.
Yeah.
But Anne is like, okay, what are you offering me here? To be the second woman? I've always felt like Anne Boleyn was so modern for her time. Honestly, if you have a friend and she tells you, Dan, I met someone, he's married, and I told him, no, you leave your wife and then you marry me. You'd be like, you go, girl.
Yeah.
Good for you. You don't want, no, right? But like, because here, it's a queen. And you're like, oh, what
Do the right thing.
What a bastard you are. Like,
Yeah.
you're not nice. You're stealing him. She's not stealing anyone. She's like, you want me? You divorce your wife. I want the whole thing. I want to become queen. And then, yes, I you know what? I don't know if she promised that she would have a son. But obviously that was, like saying you don't have any, right, with Catherine, that we might have one.
Yeah, sure.
So
Okay, should we just also, you've mentioned her sister, you think younger sister,
Mary Boleyn.
Mary at this point. Has Henry VIII also had an affair with her?
Oh, Dan, you're going to hate me. more controversy for you. I don't buy it.
You don't buy that?
And I want to tell you why. Because of the evidence. The evidence we have, the real one that we can really rely on, is Henry VIII himself. When he wants to get rid of Anne, he said, well, actually, we can't really be married, when, 1535, 1536, like, it's like, because I had an affair with Mary. So he's doing what he did to Catherine of Aragon, when he was like, you actually slept with my brother, and that's why we don't have a son. Yeah. He's doing that again. Do I really believe him? That after so many years, now he's saying that, yes, he had an affair with Mary. Okay. I'm not saying it's impossible. I just say that I just find it so convenient. And also, we know that the other sources we have, so Nicholas Sanders and stuff, it's in 1570s, so under Elizabeth I's reign. And I think it's to discredit Elizabeth, as to kind of really tarnish her legitimacy, saying, you know what?
Your mother was up.
Mary Boleyn, Anne Boleyn, your family. Okay. So I'm not saying it's not possible. Maybe it is. Lots of historians actually believe that Mary Boleyn was a mistress, and maybe she was. But I found it very convenient that it was used against Anne Boleyn, and then it was used against Elizabeth I. So I'm just a bit cautious about it.
Okay, interesting. So, but either way, Henry wants to make her his mistress. She is saying no.
She's saying no.
That's quite remarkable, isn't it?
It is remarkable. It is so remarkable. And she lived also to Hever Castle, and is going to write, people call it love letters. Can we stop with that? They're lust letters, right? It's like, he's talking about her breast and stuff. I'm sorry. You send me a letter where you talk about my breast. It's not love letters, is it? You see what I mean? Like, so it is massively lust. Okay? But he's pursuing her. And I think the fact that, he sent her gifts, she rejects the gifts.
Wow. Does she want to be queen at this point? It's sort of unimaginable. It's quite a stretch, isn't it? That a anointed king would marry somebody, would fall in lust with someone and marry them, to get rid of his wife and marry them. It is
unheard of.
It's unheard of.
It's unheard of. It is quite something.
So what do you think she's going for at the moment? What's her plan?
I thought she's just saying no.
Okay.
And I think that her game is is to be able to find a suitor for her later on, and I think she's just not interested in playing that game with him. But because he keeps pursuing her, I think at some point she did fall in love with him. And then I think that then she's like, yeah, okay, well, I want it all. I want the whole package. So we have a very the Breakworth room really starts in 1527, right? It's all when all this discussion about the annulment with Catherine, when she's humiliated at court. All it started in 1527, when we start the idea that maybe Henry VIII should not just rely on the Pope and what he's saying. And during that time, 1527 to 1532, when they actually get married, 1533, with Anne Boleyn's coronation and then the birth of Elizabeth, it's quite a long time, 5-6 years together, and it's like they become very close. He's completely devoted to her, isn't it? Like it almost seems like he loves her. I don't believe he can love anyone. But and she does, I think, really love him. And they kind of this power couple together. And it's where the reformed ideas that she read, it's like that's starting to grow on her. Like to be like, okay, well, and there's Thomas Cranmer that's playing a role that's talking about, maybe we don't have really to conform to the church, in Rome. They call him no longer the Pope, but the Bishop of Rome.
So Anne is going through her own on her own personal journey with this man she loves, and she's thinking, I'd like to become queen. And as it happens, there is this intellectual ferment for men in Europe at the moment around changing church practice, reform, what we call Protestantism. So both, it's sort of working on a bit of a twin track. She's like, hang on a second, the idea of reforming religion and reforming my personal life and prospects are sort of linked together here.
But it's also for Henry, right? It's also Henry VIII is like, why am I listening to someone?
This guy in Rome,
exactly,
who's saying I can't get divorced.
Yeah, just because Charles V obviously sacked Rome and is in control. Charles V, the nephew of Catherine of Aragon.
Yes, let's go through this bit. So Charles V, this super emperor that we talked about, who I promised not to mention anymore.
I know.
He has captured Rome. He's got the Pope hostage.
Yes.
Unfortunately, he is the nephew of Catherine of Aragon.
And there's no way he's going to let the Pope agree on an annulment.
Which is weird, because traditionally popes allowed kings to get annulled it wasn't the end of the world.
Well, I honestly think if it wasn't for Charles V, it would have gone through.
So the Pope would have been like, fine, get divorced, I don't care, annul and then marry someone else, which is not that unusual. Okay, so but because of the family politics, the popes can't do it. And then Henry's like, well, I don't know, who's the Pope anyway?
Well, it's more... Oh, well, first, okay, that's where it gets interesting. And that's where I think let's talk about the French side here. Because the French have a huge involvement in that. Francis I is like, he's interested in Anne Boleyn. I know Anne. Anne was in France. Oh, that would be interesting to have, a queen.
Very useful.
Yeah, that could be like, she's a Francophile. She loves the French. She's already starting to favor the French anyway. He's like, oh, and he hates the Spanish, obviously. And so he's like, that's great. And so he gets involved. So he's like, okay, wait, because he's very Catholic, Francis. Yeah. Henry VIII was also very Catholic, anyway.
Yeah, of course.
And they talk, and Francis is like, let me see if my theologians in Paris can agree that you can, that you can.
Oh, I see.
So there's lots of things that happens actually in France. And they all agree that he can get an annulment, that it should be possible.
Yeah, so King Francis is like, hey, Henry, I think you can get annulled.
But he doesn't just do that, Dan. He sends special envoys to Rome to convince the Pope. Did you know, actually, that I found it crazy. They try until they really fail, until there was no way they could work. That makes me think that Anne Boleyn really, 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 really wanted the Pope to recognize her, which shows that despite the fact that she might have been interested in reformed ideas, she's still extremely Catholic, even in 1527, 28, 29, 30, and she still wants to be recognized as, a Catholic Queen of England, to a point where in 1534, I call it like the impossible mission, where Jean du Bellay, a French ambassador, but also he's a bishop, is going to be sent by Francis I to Rome. Jean du Bellay loves Anne Boleyn. Not in a weird way. He just adore her, and he's sent there, and he's going to try all he can to make the Pope agree on an annulment. You know who stopped it? Who betrayed him? Henry VIII.
What?
Yeah, Henry VIII didn't send the special envoy he had to send to back up Jean du Bellay, and Jean du Bellay got betrayed by the Spanish there. The Spanish bishop, the Italian bishop, and he was waiting for Henry to send him the backup he needed. And Henry, you have letters of Henry VIII telling him, yeah, I'll do it. I'll send them now. He never does. And that tells me that's Henry's break with Rome.
Okay.
And Anne actually never wanted the break with Rome.
So Henry's decided, I'm through with the Pope.
Absolutely. And, we talk also about excommunication, the fear of it. It doesn't happen right away, does it? It takes a long time for him to be excommunicated. It's like, bring it on.
Interesting.
So it is a very complex time politically. But what I found, for me, when I was doing the research, it was heartbreaking to see how the French tried so hard to make her the legitimate Queen of England. And when they failed, at that time, that was the last thing they could try. Then obviously they're like, you're on your own.
If Francis of France had managed to stop the Reformation happening in England and Anne Boleyn had been crowned Catholic Queen of England, what a world we'd be living in now.
I know.
Extraordinary.
It didn't happen because of Henry VIII. It's definitely his Reformation. But not a religious one, or not right away. He He doesn't become Protestant. He's a Catholic until his death.
Is Catholic, but who's
But
fighting with the Pope, rejecting the Pope.
But yeah, for his own authority,
Yeah,
head of the church. and
Which
everything.
people have been doing for Henry II did that. I mean, everyone's
Yes,
fighting
yes,
with
yeah,
it.
yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah,
Philip of France. I mean, that guy, he fighted the Pope the whole time. Okay, so it's not yet a kind of deep-rooted transformation of English religious society.
Not yet,
Okay,
not yet. It comes later.
That'll come later. Okay, so we're into the 1530s now. Henry decides, that's it. I don't need the Pope's permission. I'm annulling my marriage.
Yeah. That's why it's so interesting. 1532. There's the meeting in Boulogne and Calais between Francis I, Henry VIII, and Anne Boleyn. There's celebrations as well, festivities, and Henry VIII tells Anne Boleyn, "You do not come to that." She disobeyed him, went, and we know for a fact she had a discussion at that time with Francis I. What we don't know is what they said each other. But what we know is that once they left Boulogne and Calais and went back to England, Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn got married. And obviously, we're going to have a baby. Like later, 9 months later, there's Elizabeth.
Okay.
Then Anne Boleyn is crowned Queen of England, 1st June 1533. And all I'm talking about is after. The French didn't stop. They still tried. Francis I could not believe what happened. He was like, and that's why I don't really know what he told her for her to feel like, okay, we're going to do it. Because he must have said, I will back you. I will support you. And I think she misunderstood him. Like, support, like, I'm on your side.
Yeah.
But he can't go against the Pope, Francis I, because he's trying to get his second son to marry the Pope's niece, Catherine of Medici. So he's like, please don't up. So, no, but you have to understand that everyone has their own agendas. And I think Francis I really liked Anne Boleyn as a person. But he was like, don't mess with my plans. And everything I told you about Jean du Bellay going to Rome is in 1534. So it's a year after Anne Boleyn being crowned in England and everything. She's still looking forward to be like recognized by everyone. She wants to, and so that's crazy because we don't talk about this. We assume that boom, 1533 you have the break with Rome. That's not true. It goes on for longer.
She's still trying to be recognised. It's actually Henry who's thinking, I don't even want the recognition.
He's like
anymore.
at that
I'm
point
out.
he's like, I don't care.
How popular or otherwise is their marriage in England?
Well, it depends, obviously. There are lots of supporters of Catherine of Aragon. Obviously, Catherine of Aragon, the way she was humiliated, like cast away. Like, I mean, let's face it, it's been horrendous for her from 1527 to until her death.
Embarrassing.
Absolutely. But there are people that do like Anne. When people are like, our coronation, everyone was like, no one cared. And that's not true. People loved having a party anyway.
Yeah, sure.
and she had, obviously, we don't talk enough about Anne and what she did for the people. But did you know, Dan, that she supported the poor, that she had charities set up? Did you know as well that Anne Boleyn, when she died, had lots of debts? Do you know why? Because she was a very nice landlady, not good financially. Because if one of her tenants were like, I can't pay this month, she was like, no, it doesn't matter. You'll pay next time, babe. No, but do you imagine Anne Boleyn being like this? No, we never talk about the fact that she was, she had a bad temper. She could be annoying. She didn't treat well Princess Mary, Catherine of Aragon. Of course, they wanted the same man, right? They loved the same man. But she was so loyal. So when you were her friend, and on her side, she was 100% loyal to you. And she was so good with the people, with charities, the poor. She was really trying. A good lady as well. Like she always we're having a hard time. Well, you'll pay me later. And that's why she ended up with lots of debts, unfortunately. But she was dead, so who cares?
Exactly. Who cares?
Yeah, I know.
Die with debts. That's my policy. She has a child, but it's very disappointingly a girl.
Yeah, well, the best queen.
Who turns out to be the best queen in the history of England? Exactly, fine.
Exactly.
Best monarch, not just best queen.
Yeah, exactly.
Although, hang on a second, we have done an episode with our Irish colleagues who would beg to differ on that one. But
I know.
But
and
anyway,
they're right, though.
They're right as well. But certainly someone who's often thought to be the best monarch in English history, Elizabeth. But at the time, she's second daughter. They wanted a son. She's a footnote.
It is tough.
When does their relationship start to go sour?
It's warm. people will tell you it's when Elizabeth I was born. That's not true. I mean, not that time. So 7th September 1533, we have Elizabeth. And obviously it's a big disappointment, right? But Anne Boleyn truly loved her daughter, cared for her, showered her with gifts. But even Henry VIII, at the time, he really loved. And he thought, all right, okay, he thought, she's healthy. It's our first baby. She's healthy. Because the problem with Catherine of Aragon, and I think people don't really discuss that, is the fact that most of her children, some of them died unfortunately in infancy, right? But a boy like Henry died, he was 1 or 2 years old. Yeah. So all a baby, apart from Princess Mary, were kind of sick or ill. And he was like, okay, first kid, first healthy kid.
Yeah.
So he was like, okay, so at that point, he's disappointed. Must be like a slap in the face. But at the same time, he's like, okay, we can make it work. So they keep trying. But they keep having fights because obviously Anne Boleyn she has an opinion about everything. Love her. But she's starting to... Actually, did you know that she voiced her concerns about the dissolution of monasteries?
Okay.
So she didn't like what he was doing. And she told him and Thomas Cromwell, she confronted both of them saying like, you're doing that for money. And they hated that. They hated that what she was, fighting for the dissolution of monasteries. She was sending money to the monks that were losing their homes and stuff. They hated that she was doing all of this. So they had lots of fights, and the fights were public. We have fights that are massively public between Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn. So imagine in private, I don't even want to imagine. But they always seem to make up. And so there's no, it doesn't fall. It's up and down, up and down, up and down. And she gets pregnant again. But, a miscarriage. Okay. And again, another miscarriage. And again, she's pregnant again. And this time, it's January 1536. But this time, 7th January 1536, Catherine of Aragon died. Anne Boleyn is 5 months pregnant, 20 weeks. I mean, we can't really know for sure. You see what I mean? Like quite showing, but not too much either. Miscarriage. And here we see the fetus was a boy. And at that time, it's not, I think, January 1536 to what's going to happen April and May 1536, so her downfall, that happened so quickly. You have Henry VIII like, what's, I've had enough. And people are pushing Jane Seymour in his arms. And Anne is starting to get jealous because I call her a substitute French princess in my book, but she's not French. She doesn't bring, a dynastic alliance.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Her relationship with Henry VIII is the reason why she's Queen of England, why she's so important. So losing that, like losing his affection, is losing everything.
Yeah, she can't fall back on being an important foreign
princess.
It's
not. She can't be. And Catherine of Aragon is now dead. So before, it's why it's so for people to understand. But as long as Catherine was alive, she was safe, because for the Catholic, he was already married to Catherine. For the Reformed or people who believe that there was more than Catholicism, he was married to Anne, right? But if she died, people were like, the Catholics were like, well, he can remarry. They don't believe in Anne Boleyn's marriage, right? Like he can remarry, and everyone is telling him, get rid of her. And it's, how do you get rid of her? And the problem with her is that, with Anne, is that she's going to make a very big enemy out of Cromwell. She actually is going to threaten him indirectly.
And now Thomas Cromwell, people will know from the books and the wonderful TV shows, is Henry's chief minister at this point, his fixer.
He's the most powerful man in England. He's he's so powerful, he controls everything. And Cromwell has had enough of Anne. At first, he obviously supported her. I mean, at first, he's behind her. But then he doesn't like the fact that she has an opinion on everything. He doesn't like that she voiced her concerns about the dissolution of monasteries. She voiced her concerns about what he was doing, basically. And
presumably, you can also see Henry falling slightly out of love with her.
Yeah, also like thinking, I need to make my king happy, right? To make my king happy, I need him to have a son. But Cromwell is starting to, also he blames Anne for what happened to Wolsey. He thinks that she played a role in his downfall, and Wolsey was his master and patron. So there's he's starting to get annoyed with her. And Anne is going to indirectly threaten him. And you don't threaten Cromwell unless you do it, you get rid of him, or if you threaten him, you're done. Because then she threatened him in March. By April, she was gone. Like she was arrested. So you can see here that he was like, okay. What's awful though, Dan, is obviously what's going to happen to her and how they're going to think of a downfall. Henry VIII wanted the downfall. He's the one who's going to tell Cromwell, get rid of her. I've had enough. And Cromwell was like, how? Find a way. And, I not many people realize that story, but Anne Boleyn, at the end of April, so Eustace Chapuis, who is the imperial ambassador, the man of Charles V, the big guy, the emperor, even him didn't understand what was going on at the end of April. It's like the king and the queen, so, the concubine, Anne Boleyn, are supposed to go to Rochester. But here, I see the Privy Council meeting, and no one is telling me what's going on. He's always hearing it, and he's everywhere. And he has no clue what's going on. And Anne is, the date where she's supposed to go to Rochester with Henry VIII gets delayed. And she waits and she waits. And when they finally come to get her, it's not to get her, to send her to the Tower. You've been arrested for high treason. What? I thought I was going to Rochester. Do you see how your world flipped upside down with what they did to her? And then she's to the Tower of London, 2nd May, 1536.
And she discovered quite the rap sheet against her. It's
oh my God.
Adultery.
Incest. High treason.
Bit of witchcraft in there.
It's what Henry VIII said.
Okay. But still,
yeah.
Pretty, and conspiring to high treason, so conspiring to kill the king.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
That was any truth into any of those allegations?
Okay. Absolutely not. Nothing. They have absolutely nothing. And incest with her brother. When you look at the source about the trial of Anne Boleyn, where all the accusations are made against her, you have to imagine. First of all, you have to imagine Anne in front of all these men. Her uncle, Duke of Norfolk, is there. Most of the men that have a seat, she put them there. They were part of the Boleyn faction. There's Cromwell that, with whom they've obviously worked together for a long time. And here she's listening to what they say. So and it's how it's written. She violated the mouth of her brother.
Oh.
And wait, no, worse than that. Honestly, you read. So you have the dates and the places where she would have had, there's so many men. There's Mark Smith, and the musician. There's the music instructor. There's Henry Norris. There's so many, other men that are going to die. And they said to her that 2 weeks, it's not funny, but 21st September 1533, it said in the trial, you were in Hampton Court, shagging Henry Norris in the garden of Hampton Court. She gave birth the 7th September 1533, Greenwich. You are impure. You're not allowed to go anywhere after giving birth for 6 weeks. So they're saying she went on a boat, went to Hampton Court, of all the places, went to see Henry Norris. I just want sex right now. And went in a garden, of all places, right? Take me here. I mean, insane. I'm gonna paraphrase what Anne Boleyn. So Anne Boleyn listened to all that bull. And then she said, you know what? I get it. You want me dead. Oh, no, she said, he wants me dead. Fine. But please, save the lives of these innocent men who did nothing. At a time where it was her trial, she knew that, it was an end game. It was a foregone conclusion. She didn't think about saving herself. She wanted to save the men that were accused with her. Doesn't it tell you everything you need to know about Anne? Honestly, I think we do not talk about this enough.
Well, I'm glad we're talking about it now.
I know.
So she was found guilty. The men in question were killed. Her efforts were not successful.
Absolutely not, yeah.
Including her brother. Now, she was killed at the Tower of London. Did Henry get married the same day? I can't remember.
No, he's hunting with Jane Seymour the same day, and he married her 10 days later.
He married her 10 days later.
Can you imagine for Jane as well? We love pitting all these wives against one another, but can you imagine Jane? Oh, great.
Yeah.
I'm next. That's lovely.
And they sent the final bit of the French Connection. They sent someone to get a French executioner to do the job on Anne.
But what's very interesting is obviously we know that it doesn't take, it's not a 2-hour, kind of travel time, right? But her trial is on the 15th of May. She's executed on the 19th of May. So for the guy to arrive, he was already asked to come way earlier than that. They didn't, you couldn't call someone and say, okay, she's guilty, please come. And when you think about it, like the arrest, 2nd of May, and then the execution, 19th of May, do you realize how quick it is? But what doesn't it tell you? It tells you that he doesn't want the news to spread. He doesn't want France to know. The French, the French ambassador was not at the time, was not a huge fan of Anne Boleyn, but his secretary, Lancelot de Calle, who's going to write the life and death of Anne Boleyn and is going to record, he's a witness of her death. He wants everyone to know in France what Henry VIII did. Henry VIII is going to try to censor that book, and Francis I is going to say, okay, I will not let it get published, but he doesn't stop the book to be circulated in the French court because it shows Henry VIII's cruelty. It shook Europe. Francis I after that is like, I'm not sure I want you to marry, someone from France. My daughter, no, it's not going to happen. My sister, no, not going to happen. No one's going to happen. Because it's like when Marie de Guise, he wants to marry Mary de Guise after Jane Seymour died. And Mary de Guise said, my neck is too small. No one wants to marry Henry VIII. He's a murderer. There's no other explanation. But what's so interesting about Anne is that obviously she's executed at the Tower of London. But can I tell you a little story when she was imprisoned? She thought about two people. Kingston, the one in charge of the tower, met her a few times. And twice she was crying. She was crying for Elizabeth, her daughter, leaving her behind. So she's going to ask her chaplain, Matthew Parker, he promised to her, I will look after her. And he did. Well, as much as he could. But the second time she was still crying, and Kingston is like, why are you crying? And I'm thinking about my mother. She's gonna lose 2 of her children. And you know what? It's not the worst thing that happened, actually, Dan. For me, the worst thing is that you have to imagine the Boleyns, so Thomas and Elizabeth, are back at Hever Castle. Do you know who arrived at Hever Castle? Cromwell and his men. And they destroyed everything that Anne possessed. That's why we don't have her letters. That's why everything has been destroyed. And it's so hard to get to her words. That's why also the work of Kate McCaffrey is so important, with the Book of Hours. Because Anne gave that to her ladies in waiting. And they passed it on women. The women protected Anne's legacy. But otherwise, everything else has been destroyed. Because Henry VIII ordered Cromwell to destroy everything. Probably he didn't want, the letters or stuff that could be remembered. And isn't it good now that we're still talking about her right now in your podcast?
In defiance of Henry VIII.
Exactly. A tyrant.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and doing that.
Thank you, Dan.